Yo, what's up guys? Welcome back to the channel. For this week's video, I'm going to be talking about studying in Prague. By studying, I mean getting the maximum amount of work done as a medical student. So if that sounds interesting, let's get right to it. So first up, in my first year, I actually found it quite easy to study at home and I got a lot of work done that way. And it was like towards the end of winter semester, or rather beginning of summer semester, that I felt the need to go to the libraries as well as cafes to study at. Now, of course, this is a really good option for those of you guys who usually get distracted at home, and it's much better for you guys to go to the library and study then. But of course, the issue with the library is in such situations it may not be so safe to go, and you might feel much better staying at home and studying. But the issue with staying at home is you could get distracted as well. So the best way to sit and study at home would be to make your own dedicated workspace to it. Like, it's always good to make sure you clear up your table where you're going to sit and study at. Make sure you have all your productive stuff in one place with like a water bottle as well as a snack, to make sure you don't have to like continuously get up and get stuff that you may need the next 2-3 hours, because you could be sitting and studying for that long. And even for washrooms, just make sure it's like a quick break and then you come back and get right back to being productive. So for me, one of the major issues while studying at home was I used to get distracted quite a lot by my phone, or even at the library, like when I used to go with a friend. I felt like the phone was like there. It was just like beckoning me to just use it, and I felt like, I gotta just go through Insta all of a sudden, or Snapchat, even though like I just looked at it like 5 seconds ago or so. So the best way to like prevent yourself from looking at your phone, or at least for me, was to enable this function called Zen mode. It's available on OnePlus as a default application. So it enables you to disable your phone anywhere between, I think, 10 minutes to 150 minutes. And ideally, I usually prefer to disable it for like 60 minutes or so. And it really helps me get a lot of work done, whatever I need for that week, rather than just sifting through my phone and like spending countless hours whiling away on my phone. But if you're studying at home, obviously you're gonna have that friend to help you keep your phone away, and it's gonna take a lot more of willpower, I feel, to just get your work done. So in such a case, which was my issue in third year summer semester, when I had to go back home and like I was studying for my finals there. So what I did was I used to call up my friend every 2-3 days, and we used to like set up topics to study for. At that time I had pathos, so we used to like pick 2-3 topics that we're going to discuss and study about in the coming maybe like 2 days or 4 days, and accordingly discuss them. So this actually kind of forced me to actually get motivated to study for the topics. Like, I used to sit and watch videos for it, as well as go through the notes for it, write some stuff down, revise it right before we discuss the topics. So while we are discussing the topics, usually we ask each other some questions from whatever we have learned, as well as maybe some questions that some of our friends might have gotten for their exams, as well as maybe what our seniors could have gotten as well. And I felt like this was a really good way to make sure like you have learned whatever you have learned properly, as well as it was like a good way to revise without just bluntly going over the videos and notes hundreds of times. Now, for those of you guys in first year and who are in Prague, you guys would, I don't know, I personally felt like in first year it was quite difficult for me to sit and study for the slide test that you guys had every week. So the best way to go about learning for it was to use some kind of atlas. For me personally, I use Sabota. Some of you netters would be a better option. But despite studying it from these atlases, I still felt like it was quite difficult to like prepare for the slide test entirely. So what I used to do was I used to go and study the appropriate, like for example, in the first 2 weeks, I think you will have bones of the upper and lower limbs. So for these, what I did was, after studying the theory as well as going through the atlas for the pictures of the bones, I used to go to the bone room and like look at the actual bones there. Now, of course, these bones could be worn out and like it could be difficult to identify the landmarks that you're much more familiarized with in the atlases. But going through the bone room, I definitely felt like it was much easier to understand and like visualize what it was that I was actually learning. And when I gave the slide test, I felt like it was much easier for me to identify the structures as well. And of course, this is important not just for bones of the upper and lower limbs, but especially for the skull test, which you could be having in November, December time after dissections usually. And during this time, it's so important that you go to the library, or if that's closed, then maybe try and find some kind of these models for of the skull, and like get a wire and like put it through like each of the foramina, because it helps you understand much better like how exactly and where exactly all the nerves, the vessels go through. Another tip that really worked out for me was getting up early in the morning and studying. Like I would go to bed around 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, and get up around 5 or 6 a.m. in the morning. And I feel like I was much better prepared to study whatever topics I had difficulty with the previous night when I got up in the morning. Of course, for me personally, my productivity goes down around like 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, and I get distracted quite easily. And I feel like it's much better for me to just study whatever I need in the morning. And it's much easier, I feel, to get work done when you feel like the rest of the world is sleeping and you're the only one awake at that time. Of course, if you're someone who prefers to study at night, then go for it as well. Because especially in the summer, I feel like it gets quite hot in Prague, and during such times, like it's much better to like work through the night when it's much cooler rather than getting up in the morning and sweating through the day.